Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Burer. I'm Dean of Faculty at DTS, and welcome to Beyond the Classroom. As a dean here at Dallas Theological Seminary, I get to work with some of the best professors on the planet. And today I want to introduce you to one of them, Dr. Josh Freeman, Assistant Professor of Counseling Ministries. Josh, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
We want this podcast to be a chance for people who know about DTS to get to know our faculty. So why don't you start out just by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I grew up kind of all over the Southeast, was in Georgia, then Florida, then back to Georgia, moved out to Dallas in 2008 to start my program here in the THM, and we've just kind of settled here since. So I started in the THM and then switched into counseling 2 years in. And then after graduation, I started working at Dallas Life. It's a homeless recovery center where I was doing counseling and supervision and some program development there. I've worked in a couple of private practices in the Dallas area, and then pursued and completed my doctorate at A&M Commerce, which is now East Texas A&M. My wife and I married right before we moved out here. We got married at Berry College, which I consider the prettiest college campus in the world. I'm a huge fan of Berry College, and that was transformative for me. And so we initially moved on to campus housing and then bought a house up in Richardson, and we've been in that area since right around 2010.
Okay. Well, you've already mentioned a couple of things that are really close to my heart. Georgia, because I'm from Georgia. And then also being a student that's now a professor. I've had that beautiful privilege of having you in class and then now watching you become a professor. It's pretty exciting stuff.
That is exciting.
Now, one of the things that really binds us together as professors is our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. We want to make sure we're serving Him, honoring Him, and serving Him. So tell us how you came to faith.
Yeah, so I came to faith as a result of a daily family Bible study. So I come from a large family. There's 6 kids. And so my parents chose to have daily quiet times with the kids. And at an early age, that was not at 6 a.m. before my dad went off to work. The younger kids got to sleep in. And so on one of those mornings, I think I was eating breakfast while my mom was reading the Bible through to me. And I had some additional questions about eternal destination, what happens, heaven, hell, those types of things. And I was navigating those questions with her and understood that things that I did was preventing me from going to heaven. And we'd already talked about Jesus before. And so then she was able to tie those two things together. And so I made a proclamation of faith. And so then got to celebrate with my siblings and my family, and just kind of kept that going since. And then that's graduating into an age of then morning family Bible studies.
Yeah, that's really neat. You've mentioned some in just conversation that we've had about the faith of your family and how that has really been impactful on you. So that's neat. I didn't know that it was specifically around those morning Bible studies. That's really neat.
Right.
Now, I also know that your story about coming to DTS kind of involves your family. So how did you end up coming to DTS?
Yeah, so I affectionately say that we were brainwashed to love DTS. And so
that's okay.
In the positive sense of brainwashing. So my mom came to saving faith in college. And then early on, she was mentored by students of DTS that would drive down to University of Texas and do Bible studies with students there. My dad came to faith through my mom. And then right after they got married, they moved to Dallas and were surrounded by DTS churches. And so both of them, very young in their faith, were surrounded by DTS professors and DTS graduates in teaching at their church. They then moved all around because of my dad's job, but pretty much everywhere they moved, they would call DTS and say, hey, do you have a DTS grad somewhere around here that we can go to their church?
Wow.
So very impactful for my parents. And then therefore, most of the churches I grew up with were all pastored by DTS people. On those daily Bible studies, we had prayer days. And so Mondays were praying for missionaries that we knew, plus DTS faculty, students, and grads.
Wow.
So every Monday we were praying for DTS. And so that resulted in my older brother. We were in Atlanta. My older brother started in the Atlanta Extension campus. in like 2001, it was like the first or second year that the Atlanta campus was there, and I think it was at Roswell, Fellowship Bible Church Roswell, and then it switched over to North Point. And so he started in the THM and an extension site. Then he and my sister moved out. They both completed their degrees out here. Through that, my sister-in-law started in the worship, media arts and worship program, and then I came out, and then I went through. I started in the THM. So after switching, I got my counseling degree and my biblical studies degree. And then my younger sister came through. So there are 5 of us with 6 DTS degrees.
That's pretty cool. You mentioned brainwash as a negative, but the positive is that your parents really believed in the ministry, and it's now bearing a lot of fruit in your life. So that's really, really exciting. Now, just a quick question: have your mom and dad been able to come back for a degree?
They were not. Actually, the funny story about that, a little tangent. Dr. Ryrie convinced my dad not to come to DTS. Back in the 80s, I think. They were at Mount Hermon out in California, and Dr. Ryrie was speaking there. He had dinner a couple of times with my parents, and my dad was like, "Hey, the company I'm with is looking at being absorbed. Would this be a good time to switch?" And Dr. Ryrie told my dad, "We need people in the workforce. We need people that are managing. We've got a lot of people that are going out and working at churches. We need people that are in the workplace." And so my dad chose not to.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, one would think that Dr. Ryrie would automatically say, "Come to seminary," but maybe he saw something in your dad about
discerning conversation about managing people and
with Christ in the workplace. That's
and
really
at that
cool.
time there were fewer degrees here too, right? So it was less about, hey, you can grab this, which is going to give you some knowledge. And I guess this was probably like 82, 81, 82. It would have been fewer opportunities. It would have been a much bigger commitment.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's really neat. I didn't know that about your family history. So, hey, well, as a counseling professor, what are some of your current academic interests? I mean, I can imagine counseling, but like any field, there's a lot of things and a lot of depth there. So what kind of things are you working on and interested in at present?
Yeah. So something that has just kind of stayed with me since the very beginning. As soon as I graduated, I was asked to start navigating or managing a department, and so that included supervision and passion for supervising counselors. In our field, you have to have student experience between 300 and 700 hours before you graduate, and then in Texas, after you graduate, you have to accumulate 3,000 hours under supervision. And so the role of the supervisor, counselor development stages, supervision techniques, those are one of the interests that I have early on because out of necessity. Hey, I need to learn these for me. And as it's continued and I've gathered a lot more experience in counselor supervision, counselor development, is a big part of what my dissertation was on. That has remained an interest because of the mentoring aspect, the various roles that the supervisor gets to play, the relationship, and the impact on that counselor's career. So that's one of the main interests.
Okay. Now, when I hear you say mentoring, I'm thinking, for example, of my pastoral context. I serve as an elder. We're trying to grow younger men to be leaders, et cetera. Is it similar to that, or is it? I guess it would also be professional and actual counseling techniques and professional standards. It sounds a lot more holistic, maybe.
Yeah. And so mentoring would be like my bent on it. But the 3 recognized roles of a supervisor would be supervisor as teacher. So a supervisee comes, whether it's a student or a newly licensed counselor, and is asking about, what do I do with this client? This is coming up for me. What do I do for myself? How do I navigate advocating for myself in these job interviews? What do these contracts look like? So it's kind of very holistic, and there's more of a teaching role there. As the counselor gets more developed, it can switch more into more of a consultant role. of putting out ideas and navigating with the counselor, the supervisee, how they're making their decisions. And then supervisor as therapist is also there. So it's not a license. It's not a professional counseling relationship. We're not signing an informed consent. Obviously, there's a dual relationship there. But that supervisor as therapist means that we really can dig into what are things internally for the supervisee that is providing a barrier. What am I hoping my client does so that I'm okay as a counselor? And that just leads to manipulation of the client. So trying to understand what barriers might be coming up. So those three roles are pretty cool. For me, I think of it in terms of mentoring in those things. So like looking outward, looking inward in all of those areas.
Okay. That sounds it's a lot fuller than I guess I really understood. So tell us about your involvement in your local church. We believe the church is important. That's why we're here. What are you doing in the local church?
Yeah. So right now we've got a young child at home and one on the way. And so right now my role in the local church has primarily been one of attender and supporter behind the scenes a little bit. So at my current church, I've served on the youth group. I've taught classes to the youth. I've taught classes to the adults. I've helped with sermon series, not preaching, but navigating syncing up a sermon series and the Sunday school class afterwards and discussions. And then I served as an elder, started as an elder candidate for a year and a half, and then was an elder, vice chair, then chair, and went on sabbatical. And then right at that time was finishing up my dissertation, and then Theodore was born, so just stepped back and have not rejoined the elder board. But I, as a former elder, I still get to pray with people. I still get to serve at the table occasionally, and get brought into some conversations because of my history with the church and things. So a little bit more of sometimes a consultant, kind of behind the scenes.
Well, that makes sense, of course, with the state of your family.
Right.
And, as you know, things will kind of ebb and flow, and then time will come when maybe you can be more and more fully involved. But that's neat that you've had that experience and now can kind of build on that in the interim.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that there's an importance on practicing being led too, as opposed to only looking at the leading side of it. So when I was an elder, I wanted to make sure that I was not leading a small group, that there were even people that I was submitting to that would be the group leaders that were outside of the leadership board. And so I think of that as this aspect of working on that component too. So I consider myself fully participating as a participant, but not as a leader. But
that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, for me
as an elder myself, you saying that makes me think, wow, I need to look at that aspect of my life too and think about how am I being led in submitting to others. And so maybe there will come a time when I roll off. I roll off in about a year. And so I'll have to consider that as well. So that's a really mature attitude. Tell us about a current project you're working on. We're all academics. We're always writing, working on something. What do you have in your hopper?
Yeah. Right now, our department is navigating some big changes as we're changing our accreditation. And so right now my big project is just staying above water on teaching new courses every semester. So getting courses that I have not prepped for or taught before. That is... I just went to a conference and went to a bunch of breakouts on the courses that I'm teaching currently and will be teaching in the spring.
And that's a function of moving towards this certification. You've got to make sure that you're strong in those to meet sort of this panoply of things.
And because of our department is adding a new accreditation, so essentially there's a whole new program that we're teaching while we're finishing up our current program, and that limits the amount of faculty that can teach in each program. So what that means for our department is some people are teaching things that they had not taught before. And I was an adjunct at DTS for quite a while, but my main focus was on the clinical courses, supervising students when they are seeing clients outside of the classroom. And so teaching some of the content courses is requiring a little bit more. It's stretching me and requiring a little bit more prep. So there's that aspect. A couple other projects are at the very infant phase. Is brainstorming with some of the faculty here on some writing projects. And this conference that I was just at. There was some networking with some journals and some journal editors as to what are they looking for, what are they wanting to add to upcoming issues that we might be able to contribute to. And then my dissertation was published in the main dissertation phase where all dissertations are published, and now it's trying to manuscript that out into one or two articles. And so working with my dissertation chair as to how we could divide that up into a couple of articles is also there.
Well, as Dean of Faculty, my job is to make sure you get that done. So keep at it. But your hopper is quite full. It sounds like at present. So.
And I had some conversations about a book chapter on trauma. And so, but that's just in the very, very conversation phase.
Okay.
So
very good. Sounds like a lot of full dance card.
Right.
What are you reading right now that is just really fun? We all read, academically. Are you reading anything that you think, wow, I'm just this is fun?
Yeah, I would say fun for me. I am not reading much that's fun. Non-academically, I am reading things on. Non-academically, I'm reading things on like psychology of money, looking at finances, trying to think about what's going on with our family 10, 15, 20 years from now as kids are in college. I would say I have the most fun reading kids' books. So, every morning I get to read the Bible and books that Theodore loves. And then every night we kind of do meal time, then bath time, then pajama time, and then story time, and end with Bible time. So some of his favorite stories right now it's a lot of fun to watch him navigate those books. So we're really into Thomas the Train and Cracking the Track right now. It's not as much fun reading, but it's a lot of fun watching him have fun with it.
Oh, I bet you have more fun with that than you let on.
Oh, yeah.
To kind of close our time, what's the most rewarding thing for you about being a professor?
Yeah. I would say I really enjoy being surrounded by colleagues that are smart, intentional, and nerdy. And
in a good way.
All of those can be negative, and then all of those can be really positive, and I appreciate them in the positive senses. I also like the way teaching the courses, so much can be extrapolated from and brought into the classroom that is helping sync up knowledge bases. So I tend to be pretty curious and eclectic in information that I like to collect. And it seems like the broader I read, the better it makes. So it almost gives license to collect books and have various topics to be reading and studying. So there's that aspect of liking to be surrounded by people and having high-level conversations. I would say I really enjoy discussions and watching students develop. So a couple of my favorite courses are the professional skills and ethics, like a pre-practicum class. This is where students are moving from primarily that student identity into, I'm going to be a counselor. And so watching them make that progress in one semester, and then similarly their first semester seeing clients, making that huge jump of, I can't do this to actually I am doing this. And so watching that happen over the course of a semester is really rewarding. And then there are some specific classes where we might start in the classes feeling apprehensive or maybe a little angsty, and over the course of discussion and watching the group work, them asking questions and answering questions within the group, being able to add to things, seeing how at the end of class it's different than the beginning of class. So seeing long-term transformation, short-term transformation, and even class-specific transformation is pretty fun and rewarding too. So those I would say were like the highlights.
Good, good. Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you and all that you're doing. And I want to thank you for joining us for Beyond the Classroom. If you have a desire to learn about Dr. Freeman or any of our other wonderful faculty members, please go to dts.edu.